Alaska. I was saying earlier that when I hear the word Alaska, I don't even know. I don't even think people are talking about the state. I think they're talking about you. Thank you for joining us, Alaska.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi, Alaska. Thanks for joining.
So I don't
Thank
know
you.
if you remember this. We are definitely going to talk about, among other things, the Alaska Thunderfuck extra special comedy special that just premiered on Out TV. It's hilarious. Do you remember when I moderated the Drag is Punk panel at RuPaul's DragCon? I think 2016 had Alice Bag, it had the Boulay brothers on it. You had Henry Rollins cracking up. Like he was intimidated by you. He was so in awe of you. Do you remember this? It was like people were memeing it. People were like, look at the way Henry, get yourself a guy who looks at looks at you the way Henry Rollins looks at Alaska. It was classic moment.
I love that. I do remember that. And it's one of those moments. I mean, I love getting to do drag in front of people who have no idea like what drag is or what drag is about because it's like I'm just like, hi. And they're like they don't know what to do. They lose their minds. They don't understand. It like doesn't compute. Like that I love that sort of that context of drag so much.
You did not know Hank Rollins before this?
I mean, I knew of him because he's like that really good looking like rock star guy, and he was on Drag Race as a judge.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But I like knew of him. Yeah.
Okay.
He was loving you. So
You
he
know,
was cracking up. Sorry, go ahead, David.
Lindsay, I mean, because you brought up such a genre, such a forum, being the punk rock panel, and Alaska did that. I'm gonna just interject here because there's something I was curious about in reviewing Alaska's life. Alaska, I heard you mention in an interview, just briefly as an aside, that you were kind of punk in high school. What's that mean?
It's true.
What does it mean?
It's true because it was like I mean it was like I wasn't really punk because I'm not cool enough to actually be punk. But like I was like Hot Topic was like, oh my gosh. I was like once I started to like realize that I was gay and sort of step into myself a little bit, that was like the first gateway. I was like, okay, these guys at Hot Topic get to wear like tight pants and tight shirts,
Right.
and I'm like, that's me.
I
That is
got
the
this.
I am that. I want to be that. And
Right.
so it was sort of like it was a natural progression, but like yeah, a
Did you
little.
now that you're mentioning that now and that progression, it is extremely natural having. Did you then recognize and see how enmeshed the drag community and the punk community has been for
Oh my
decades and decades?
gosh. I
Did you
mean,
know that?
it wasn't until later because
Okay.
drag was like that was it was a little further off. Like that
Oh,
was
right.
when I like got to college.
Okay.
And then I was like, you know what? Fuck literally fuck capitalism,
Yep.
fuck gender
That's
roles.
right.
Like
Let's get it.
and
You go,
that
girl.
was that was what made me want to get into drag. Plus I just like girls' clothes.
Yes. Yes.
Really
Understandably.
have.
Where were you were you in high school in Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're like Pittsburgh, right?
Well, I went to college in Pittsburgh, but I was in Erie. Like that's where I grew up.
Oh,
Was Erie.
I have family like in Wilkes-Barre and yeah,
Oh, Bert.
yeah, very punk. Anyways, I digress.
Very
Well,
punk.
that would
Erie's
be
so punk.
since we're sort of going all the way back to the beginning like that. How did you first get into drag? Like, what was the next step after kind of getting into the genderless Hot Topic clothes and or the women's clothes at Hot Topic to sort of making a career in drag? Or what was the first time you performed in drag?
Well, there were always dabblings and dalliances.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I dressed up like Avril Lavigne at a
Mm.
Halloween party once because she has a very easily imitatable look, which is brilliant. It was like the white tank top with the tie and the like socks on the hands.
Mm.
Sickening. So
Mm.
good. Like
Mm.
if you're gonna do a look, make it be easily imitatable. Like, hi, wear a garbage bag and a blonde wig that is fucked up on top. Okay. So there were dabblings. And then in college I got cast in like woman roles, which was unheard of at the
Wow.
time
Yeah.
because because it was like, first of all, there's no roles for women in theater,
Mhm.
like no good ones.
Shakespearean.
Second of all, there's tons of women students who need to be cast. So it was like this rogue director who came in from Russia who insisted that I play the Madam of the Whorehouse. So that was like
What show was it that had a Madam of a Whorehouse?
it was Shakespeare's
Oh, okay.
Pericles.
Okay, yeah.
There you go. Going back to the
Speaking of
Shakespearean
Shakespeare,
tradition
which is
of
traditional.
casting only men. Yeah.
Right. So, but it wasn't until like I went to San Francisco
Oh,
and I saw a show at the Stud, and it was Duran Duran tribute night. And it was my 22nd birthday, and all these drag queens were just like wild and sickening and gross.
at Tranny Shack?
Yes,
I used to go.
yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, like this, whatever this is, I want to do this. And so I went back to Pittsburgh and I started doing drag. I was like,
Because of Duran Duran. This is the most on-brand interview I've ever done.
because of Duran Duran.
Alaska, did
Very
you live
much
in
so.
San Francisco?
I did not. I just went for
Oh.
my 22nd birthday. My best friend Jeremy and I went, and we were like, let's check out this show. I don't know what this is, but
Oh, wow.
it was like, and they made drag so accessible. It wasn't this like fancy scary thing that they were like, it was trashy. It was like easy. It was like whatever you had, just grabbed it and made the story happen.
Yep.
Like I
So-
loved it.
Before we go to break, though, I need to. So these were drag queens dressed as members of Duran Duran. Is
Well,
this the
they were
vision?
just like
No,
San Francisco monster drag queens. So
Yeah.
it was like they were all like
they were just
super,
doing Duran Duran.
right, super femme and like woman drag queens, but they were
Okay.
all doing Duran Duran songs.
This is like my dream night out on town. Oh my god!
But this was, you said you were 22, so this was 4 years ago, you said?
You're hired.
Thank you.
Well, we need to take a break.
Lindsay,
but-
I got to go. I just got another job.
All right, well, we need to take a break. So I got to go, but we'll be right back with Alaska to talk about the extra special comedy special and many other things after this. She does it all. She is a quadruple threat. Is Alaska. We were sort of going down memory lane to the beginnings of your drag career, but it has culminated now in the new comedy special, the Alaska Thunderf extra special comedy special that just dropped on Out TV. And I'd love to talk about it because you kind of had to retool this thing. I know it was shot at the end of 2019 here in Hollywood. Was at the Montalban Theater where a lot of comedy events get shot.
No, this was.
Where was it at?
Do you know the Sweet Shop, the Sweet Store in
Oh, yeah.
Hollywood
That-
and Highland? They have like, I did like a signing there, and the manager was like, "Hey, do you want to see this event space we have? You can do something here at any time if you want." And it was
Wow.
this most beautiful, like gorgeously decorated like space, and I was like, "Hell yeah, work."
Is it connected to the sweet shop itself? Is it like,
Yeah.
hidden? Oh, wow. That's cool.
But you filmed it there at the end of 2019, and then, as is explained in the film itself, you kind of had to. You sat on it for a while. You didn't think like 2020 was maybe the most appropriate year, and then you kind of went back to the drawing board and you added some parts to it. You know, talking to people like Sherry Vine and Jackie Bead and Margaret Cho about comedy in this day and age. So I'm curious about your thought process about, you know, when you were looking at comedy you did in the before times, and now you're thinking about putting it out in the middle of a pandemic, basically. You know,
Right.
what was your process in deciding to kind of redo it and wait and all that?
Well, I mean, when you film something, it usually it goes away for a long time, and people work on it and chop it apart and put it together. And by the time we got it and we were starting to like look at it and do like drafts of it, it was like peak pandemic. It
Mm.
was like everything was happening and coming to a halt. And it was like, it just seemed like there were so many more things that were so much more pressing and more important than me like trying to be like, hey, look at me telling some jokes.
Yeah.
And so I was really I was like, I don't even know if we should do this, period, like at all.
Right.
And so I was like reaching out to, people who are mentors of mine and like asking advice and like really just trying to figure it out. And so then we were like, why don't we make this kind of conversation part of it? And so it will then contextualize like how the world has changed so much in the last like year or so. And so we did that. So we got on Zoom because that's what we do now.
Did you feel more? Do you feel more inspired now to continue performing and to continue creating than you did at the top of it? I asked because I experienced a very similar sentiment as you did at the time, where you're like, we can't just be releasing this when this is going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Have you become more inspired since?
Well, I feel like being in entertainment is a vital, essential thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was doubt about that, or at least insecurity about it, because it was like all of a sudden you everywhere that I worked and did my job and did drag was evaporated,
gone
overnight.
Yeah.
Like Thanos,
Yeah.
like it was just like gone. And so it was very like insecure, and it was like, well, does what we do, like what is this thing we do? What is
Mm-hmm.
it? But now I'm very like, I know that I couldn't have gotten through this past year and the difficult times, and I know a lot of people haven't, without drag and without Drag Race and without music and
Mm-hmm.
without like comedy and things that make us
that
happy
make
to be alive.
surviving worth surviving.
Mm-hmm.
Once we survive, there's a reason to survive.
100%. Tell me about some of your comedy icons, Alaska, because there's a whole real funny part of the film where you kind of do like the 80s dad joke. I love a good pun. There's a lot of puns in this segment. And it sort of seems to be referencing some classic comedians of the 80s or the 70s. Tell me about that.
I mean, to me, it's sort of like I'm obsessed with Phyllis Diller.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm obsessed with Joan Rivers. Like, I love Rodney Dangerfield. Like, that sort of like really set it up and then like, I love that type of humor. I'm obsessed with it.
How did you get exposed to Phyllis Diller initially?
Well, I'm a drag queen.
Okay. I forgot. Yeah.
Well, you're also obsessed with the Golden Girls. I remember when I was on a visit to New York. What's that theater where like they have kind of cabaret acts? It's Jinx has performed there.
The Laurie Beachman?
Laurie Beachman, yes.
Yeah.
I saw you perform there, and you did like a whole Dorothy from Golden Girls segment, and you performed Alanis Morissette's "You Ought to Know," as Dorothy, like singing it to Stanley, like singing it to her ex-husband. It was many levels of genius, and you're well known for loving the Golden Girls. Is that like a part of your comedy as well?
Oh, definitely. And they definitely come from that same school of like sort of that era of comedy, which was you see the punchline coming a mile away, but it's still satisfying when you get it.
There's another thing I want to bring up, and after I set up this question, I'm just gonna let Davey go with it. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that you once played Frankenfurter in Rocky Horror. This is like something that's very much in Davey's wheelhouse. So
this is my dream.
So I'll let you guys discuss that now.
Where and when did you do this, Alaska?
I did it at the Woodlawn Theater in San Antonio, Texas.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And Michelle Visage was Magenta, and Willem was Riff Raff, and we got to like live in San Antonio for a month and just do this iconic play that it invented me. It is part of me. I've always wanted to play that role, and I got to, and I loved it.
When did you first find Rocky Horror? I was 5 when I found
it. Wow.
Okay. I didn't realize you were that young.
I think I was younger. Yeah, because I mean, I was turned on to my mother's record collection included the Rocky Horror Picture Show piece of vinyl, and I was fascinated by it. So before I really understood what I was loving, I loved it. And then she wouldn't let me see the movie, so I had to sneak out with my cousin when I was like 12 or 13 to go see
Wow.
it at the midnight showing for the first time. Anyways, enough about me and Alaska. Your history with Frank.
How nice that you got to like experience the music first, because the music is so good.
It is so good, and only as I grew up did I even understand the music. Obviously, it
Yeah.
has an immediate appeal, but it wasn't until I was older that I realized, oh my God, this is Brian Eno, this is Roxy Music and David
Mm.
Bowie,
Yeah.
plus show tune, obviously. But
Oh,
is that how did Rocky Horror reach you?
I was in high school, and my best friend Elena, who is brilliant and hilarious and wonderful, she introduced me to this movie,
Mm.
and I was enthralled, and then I was like perplexed, and then I was like, and it like took us a few times to like get all the way through it, because the movie really gets wacko. It goes off the rails in the second act. And I didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
But I was like enthralled and obsessed, and then and it was, it was sort of a gateway drug to cross dressing.
Right.
So like, that makes sense for me to like that.
How long did you live in Texas to do the show?
It's like a month.
It's a pretty forward city though, San Antonio, right?
Yeah, San Antonio is really cool.
It's like
Yeah. Okay.
the sister city of Austin,
Yeah.
basically.
Yep.
So you, as I mentioned, besides doing comedy and doing theater and things like that, you do music. You've released 4 albums at this point, and I'm curious.
Wow.
One of them was an album with Jeremy, which I want to talk about because that was your most recent album, and that was sort of another an homage. This is how I took it, at least, an homage to another one of your idols. It was very Stevie Nicks inspired.
Very that.
Amethyst Journey was the name
Yeah.
of it. Even the cover of it looked very Fleetwood Mac rumors. And I understand, didn't you do a Stevie Nicks themed show, cabaret show at one time, like Stevie Forever or show
Yeah.
like? Tell me about that.
Yeah, we did. I mean, Jeremy and I, like, God bless the Laurie Beach Man, because really so many, it's such a like, it's such a free space to like try stuff and play around with stuff. So we would just like, we would get into a show and do it for like a couple of weekends. And then in the process of doing it, we'd be like, what if we did a show about Stevie? What if we did a show about all gay stuff? What if we did a Golden Girls show? So we did, and we did a Stevie one, and it was really fun. And I start out the show by saying, we did a share one. But Stevie, I was like, I always start out the show and I'm like, I'm not gonna dress up in some cheap costume and pretend to be Stevie Nicks and singing on the stage. I'm not gonna do that. And then we do a spiritual seance, and then by the end of the show, I do put on the cheapest
Oh, that's great.
impersonation costume, and we sing songs as our idols.
What's your history with the Laurie Beachman?
Well, it was right after Drag Race season 5,
Okay.
and they were like, do you want to come and do like a cabaret show, and people will be eating dinner while you sing songs
That
with
is
a
what it is.
How
piano.
comfortable. Sounds
Great
great.
night. It's a
But
great night out. I'll tell you that.
it really was, and it was so much fun, and we got to be so creative and sing and like really do what we love.
So were you doing like cabaret? Were you doing like jazz and blues? Were you doing pop, or were you crooning while they were
A
having
little bit. I mean, yeah,
their
it was
course?
mostly like we would take our favorite songs and just reinterpret them as like jazzy piano standards.
That's
Have you
fun.
ever been to the Night of 1,000 Stevies, like the event where literally 1,000 people dress up like Stevie Nicks? Stevie Nicks has told me when I interviewed her once that she one day wants to dress up as Stevie and sort of infiltrate it. Maybe wearing one of those. And she actually said something similar that you did, like wear like just a really bad costume.
Yeah.
So no one will actually
Like
think it's her. And then
like
just sort of
the bag costume that says like mystic witch singer costume.
Mm.
Very that. I don't think I have been to Night of 1,000 Stevies, but I really fucking want to.
Where is it, Lindsay?
it's somewhere in New York.
Yeah.
And it's like a one night thing where it is what it says, but it's like an organized event where people of, all types of people, all genders, like dress up, cosplay as Stevie, different eras of Stevie, and it's a good time. And I need to go at some point. But that was your last album, Amethyst Journey, and that was 2018.
That was the
So
last one. Didn't Vagina come out after? I don't know.
maybe, but that whatever the order is. So your first solo album was called Anus.
Yes.
Your third solo album, most recent solo album, was called Vagina. So
Yes.
what body part like is logically next in line for an album title?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, what body parts are left?
That's what I was
Mouth?
thinking.
That's tough.
Okay,
Yeah,
those
it's
aren't really
tough.
that exact. Belly button.
Superfluous.
They're based off of the chakras. So, anus
Ah.
is like the base chakra and then vagina is like the sacral chakra. So I don't know. I mean, heart. I don't know. Third eye.
Third eye. There
Do you
you
have
go.
plans? Do you have plans to track another record? Are you working on it?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. I got you. I got you, girl. When did you begin singing long before drag? You did, right? Because you're doing theater.
Yeah. Yeah, I did musicals in high school. I was in Oklahoma
Yeah,
and Joseph and the Music Man.
man. That is
So
great. Were you in choir?
A little.
Mm-hmm. Was
well
it
then
church choir?
It,
Was it
it was
secular?
not.
Oh.
It
It
was
was
like
secular choir.
it was like the
Yeah.
chorus.
Yeah.
well
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit more about your music career because a lot of contestants from Drag Race after they are on the show drop a single. So now it's kind of become like a rite of passage to drop a single the day you get eliminated or the day after the series ends or whatever. And some of them, they're not dissing or shade at anyone, but some of them are more like just kind of a club track, something to lip sync to or perform when they go on tour. And then some of them have like actually really legitimate, musical careers. And there's a handful that fit that latter category. You're one of them. I would say Adore, Delano, Sharon Needles, Courtney Act, Blair St. Clair, Jinx Monsoon for sure. There's like a handful of them. Oh, and of course Trixie Mattel that fall into that category where it's like there's actually it's not just like a novelty record. It's like a real record, a real fully realized album. So tell me about when you made the transition after being on Drag Race 5 to sort of launch a real recording career, because, we haven't had a drag queen on the charts, like really on the charts since RuPaul, when you think about it.
Right.
Not in a really mainstream way. Of course, all the people I just mentioned have charted, on iTunes and stuff, but I'm talking about like top 40 radio. And do you think that could happen? Is that like a goal of yours?
I don't know. I mean, it would be great. Like it would be fierce to hear my music on the radio. That'd be sickening. I don't. I mean, I feel like it just has to be like a miracle, and it has to be the right time and the right moment. And like RuPaul's Supermodel, I mean, it was just a really perfect distillation of this moment in time, and it caught, and it was sickening. So I don't know, it's a whole constellation of things that have to happen, but I don't know. I mean, I get to make music for people who like drag, and that's fucking awesome
Is
because
that
they
what
get what I'm talking
is that what
about.
inspires you when you create it? Are you thinking about that? Are you thinking about the drag community, or are you looking more at different artists for inspiration, or both?
Well, a little of both, because
Yeah.
I steal from the best. I
Mm-hmm.
love stealing and I love referencing, but I'm also like, whatever I have to say and I want to say has to make sense to fucking the people that are coming to my shows. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm
Hmm.
speaking to them. So that's always in my mind when I'm like writing. I'm like, what is this going to be like performing to
Right.
my people?
Well, that's actually an interesting point because you mentioned this in your comedy special about how your audience it has a lot of young girls in it. And I remember that when I hosted when the drag race store, the PEG store opened in downtown LA, and you and Adore and Sharon and was Jinx, it was yeah, you all like sang. And I remember looking out when I was moderating the panel at the audience, and it was teen girls. And right up in the front row was a girl. I don't know if you remember this. She had a dress completely made out of like pictures of your face, like like she had like a plastic dress that she made that was like had your like the pattern was your face. And so it's interesting to me. I don't know if all people from the drag race world or all drag queens have that sort of audience, but your audience skews very much towards young girls who really look up to you. What do you yeah, what do you think it is that taps into that audience for you?
I know we're like the Beatles. I love it. I don't. I mean, I love it. I love it, and they inspire me. And I think, and I've talked to fans of drag and young women who have come to drag shows, and I there's something really empowering about drag is like uh seeing like empowered, fierce femininity on stage, and it is being applauded and cheered, and people are losing their mind. And so like that to me is like what drag is. It's like the exaltation and like worship of like divine feminine energy.
That's awesome. Well, there's another thing that's sort of related to that. It also takes it back to the special. So, especially when you're having a conversation during the footage that the Zoom interviews that you did with Margaret Cho, where you're sort of talking about how people are kind of quick to outrage now. Obviously, your comedy can skirt a line. Certainly, Margaret's can. It's edgy comedy, and how culture has kind of changed. And I've talked to various people from the drag world that have been on the show, like Bianca Del Rio was on recently, sort of about the sanitization of that world and how like people, the more mainstream drag gets because of Drag Race, the more like it becomes a little less subversive, a little less underground, a little less R-rated. What are your thoughts on that, especially if you have a really young audience? Is that something you're concerned about?
I mean, it is a little, and I never want anyone to leave a show or leave a performance and feel like shit.
Mhm.
Like I do, like that isn't what I'm out to do, and I never want that to happen. So I do take it into consideration, but it also, like, I don't know, it has to be authentic as well. So I it's like, to me, like, I like drag that's a little bit bad, it's a little bit naughty, and like, but that's just me. That's not for everybody. But like, I remember when I was a kid, and I found my sister's Green Day CD or tape. I think it was a tape. And I was listening to it, and I was like, my mind was blown. I was like, are they allowed to say that? Are you allowed to say those words
Do you remember what these
on
words were? These incendiary Green Day words?
fuck and shit
Oh,
and
expletives.
dick and ass?
Yeah.
Like, and I was like, are you even allowed to do that? It blew my mind. So like, and I had to like hide it from my parents. And so like, I don't know, there's an element of that, but I also, like, I don't know, you can't swear on TV. So like, I can turn down the expletive nozzle if I have to. I can just be Alaska if I have to.
Do you think that pendulum has swung a little bit to the other way? Like, I've talked, like, for instance, at DragCon a couple years ago, I think it was the DragCon actually that Black Audio performed at. I moderated a panel that was called, I didn't name it the panel this, but it was called Seasoned Queens. So it was queens of a certain age.
Uh,
I know they didn't. I'm like, hey, I didn't come up with
Nice.
the title, but it was like Tempest du Jour and Miss Kasha Davis, and James St. James was on it, and Sister Roma from the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence,
Mm.
and they were
yeah.
all sort of talking about it, like, oh, on the one hand, it's great that this is so accepted, that it's like winning Emmys and it's on a major, award, a major network and all this, and it's so part of the fabric of mainstream culture now. But they were like, there's a part of us that kind of misses, we remember when this was like so taboo and so underground, and they kind of missed a little bit of that. You're younger than them, but you've been doing drag for a little while, and arguably started on the series, and what I think was the season when Drag Race really started to blow up. It started to blow up a little bit in season 4, but season 5 is when it really became this huge show. That's when it broke wide. So what are your thoughts about like the evolution of the show? Because you do a podcast, I should mention, with Willem. You mentioned
Yeah.
Willem. Willem, for people who don't know, was in A Star Is Born. Willem is also a great singer, and Willem is another one of my favorite people from the show. And this isn't that a podcast where you take every single season from season one and you break it down episode by episode. So you've
Yeah.
really studied the trajectory from even before you were on. Like, what are your thoughts in general about this evolution of the mainstreaming of this show and of drag in general?
Well, I mean, as far as the show, I think it's great because I don't. The more eyeballs that are on drag, I never am gonna see something bad about that. I think that's great, and
Mhm.
I think it's fierce, and I think the show is just fucking getting started. Like it's the biggest show ever. It's the reality show or competition or reality show that has won the most Emmys.
Mm-hmm.
Like killing it. Like that's fierce. That's sickening. And I'm glad to see that the show is constantly like changing it up and evolving like as we go. Like we just had the first like trans male character on the show who is in the final four.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's groundbreaking. That's breaking barriers. That's major. So like I'm happy about it. And I mean, if you want to see fucking drag that gives no fucks about propriety or whether you can swear or shit or piss or jizz, like you can go to a gay bar. Well, when they open back up very soon, you can go to a gay bar and you can see that. You can
Mhm.
see fucking Meatball. You can see a Bora. And like, so that exists as well. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it, like with this show being as huge as it is. I think it's a fucking fierce.
With your
Well,
studies of the show, do you agree with Lindsay that it did take a shift towards critical mass around season 4 or 5? Is that right, Lindsay, what you said?
mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
mean, I
So what do you think? Do you think
People.
there was a turning point where I don't know the history of the show and how and at what point it became such a mainstream
It was between
viewer
4 to
populace?
6. I
So it
would
was
say
between
4 to 6 was
do
the
you,
transitional period.
being that you are such a historian of it with the podcast, do you have a cause for that? Do you have a moment? Was there a moment, a turning point, a watershed moment, or did you feel that there was a shift in the format of it that resulted in it, or was it just a natural progression?
it grew. I mean, it has grown every season.
Mm.
So from the very first one, they discovered something magic.
Right.
Season 2, it like doubled in size. I mean, it's
Okay.
like a fucking alien organism that just like keeps like multiplying.
Yeah.
And season 3 was huge. Something shifted with Sharon Needles on season 4, and it was the sort of like underdog kind of this was also the height of like Lady Gaga becoming like big in culture, and her message was very much, no matter who you are or where you come from, you can be a star, you can be something.
Mhm.
So like that, the birth of the internet, the birth of social media, these things
Mhm.
started around that time as well,
Mhm.
started to really get bigger. So it was really like all those forces, and something happened with season 4 and the show really,
I see.
Well, before we take a break, you were in season 5. And like I said, I think that was the season that just when the groundwork that was laid by Sharon and by season 4 just really took hold in season 5 and 6. Was there a moment that you, of your own time on the show in season 5, that you see as kind of a pivotal moment? I mean, the lip sync to Cherry Bomb was pretty pivotal for me. I get, or that was actually at All Stars too. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
after the break. But season 5, your initial season, was there a moment that you sort of look back on and go, "Oh wow, that was a big deal in retrospect"?
I don't know. I guess fucking Jinx Monsoon. I mean, she's
She's great.
outstanding. I
Well,
was just happy to be there. I thought I was gonna go home the first episode and every episode.
really.
I was thrilled I got to stay there till the end.
Well, I am thrilled that you got to be on the show. Can we convince you to stay a little bit? We're going to take a break. We'll continue this conversation with Alaska on Volume West. Be right back. Before I let you go, before I know you have a live stream that I want to talk to you about coming up at 6 p.m. Pacific, but you were in the final installment of Sharknado.
Allegedly.
I buried the lead. You were
Allegedly final. I think they've done more. They called it the last one. I think they were lying. I don't know.
now they have all sorts of, every Sharknado. That was the sixth one. Every Sharknado has, an all-star cast.
Can you tell me what that is, please?
Wait, what? You don't know what
Sharknado?
how Alaska, I'll let you explain what
Please,
Sharknado is.
please, Alaska.
How I don't understand how you don't know. Dexter
don't know what
Holland
that
was
is.
in yours. I'm looking at the cast.
Well, that
So
sounds like
Sharknado is sort of like this like pretend action movie, but it's real. And
okay.
it's sort of like a parody of action movies, but
Mhm.
not like, hey, we're making a joke. It's like they just go so far with it that it's like it's like a send up of action movies while being an actual action
So
movie.
it's like a B movie. It's like camp, self-aware, but
Right.
also serious.
A-
But
and
it's
they-
the
they
action
made-
version instead of like the horror version or the sexploitation version.
Yes.
And they made 6 of them, and Alaska was in the final one.
Ah.
And it is what you would expect. It's about like a tornado of sharks.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's like a lot of sharks and they get swept up into a tornado and they like kill things.
Did you get killed?
I did.
Yeah. Was that
I-
traumatic? I'm glad to have you back.
It was the coolest. It was one of the coolest things I've gotten to do as a drag queen traveling the earth. Okay.
Really?
We were filming in January in a medieval castle in Romania.
No.
And
That sounds in January? That's freezing. Do they have central heating in the castle?
freezing.
Ugh.
I had never acted on a movie set before. I had never done, and they handed me a sword, and I was doing like sword choreography
What?
with Ian Ziering.
Come on. He goes to my
Mhm.
gym.
Like,
He's the star of Sharknado. He was in all of them.
He's also a sexy boy dancer in Las Vegas, or was.
That is, yeah, Chippendales, I
Right?
believe, yeah, or
Alaska?
Thunder. Speaking
Yeah,
of
Thunder Down Under. That's it. Anyways,
I
go on.
love that.
You and Ian.
Marina Sirtis played my mom, and I got to like look at her giant, beautiful eyes.
This is a time.
It was the coolest, weirdest, craziest. That Tara Reid was there and just shivering, and like they were like putting hand warmers on her and like trying to Deborah Wilson. Like it was wild. It was so fun.
I'm looking at the cast here. I brought it up because, like I said, they have like this very random assortment of cast for all of them. And in the I don't know how many, you didn't necessarily do scenes with all these people, but your cast for what we think is the final Sharknado. Also, we had Leslie Jordan, Neil deGrasse Tyson,
Okay.
Ben Stein, Dexter Holland from The Offspring, Dee Snider, Gilbert Gottfried, Tori Spelling, Robbie Rist, aka Cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch, Christopher Knight from the Brady Bunch, LaToya Jackson, Kato Kalin, Al Roker. And you had actually, from when I found out that you were going to be in Sharknado, I thought it would just be like one scene or a cameo, whatever. You had like a key role. You were like one of the, really like leads in it, really.
Yeah.
How did it come about that they asked you to be in? And you had kind of a Stevie Nicks vibe. You were sort of this high priestess, warrior, goddess, Celtic thing.
Like a sorceress who like had a bow and arrow. Like it was really cool. She had hair actually pretty similar to yours, Lindsay.
That's
Mm.
true.
And I showed up and I was like, okay, where's the like the wigs? And they were like, you're wearing this. And it was like, and I am used to these huge blonde things. And they put me in this really demure red wig. And I was like, okay, I'm getting into character. I'm really going outside my comfort zone.
What was
And
your
you
character?
owned it.
What was the background? Just
She was a
demurring.
sorceress, like
Oh,
an
she was a
evil
sorceress. Okay.
bitch sorceress who gave the dragons like fire breathing power.
Oh, there are dragons too, and sharks.
You need to get
A
into.
shark.
You need to binge watch some Sharknado.
Shark.
I
I
can't
don't
believe
know.
you don't know about.
I don't know
this,
that
Davey.
I do. I like in
think you
Alaska,
do.
but the rest of this. Although Neil deGrasse, did you act with Neil Tyson? No.
No,
Did you engage with?
the way they do these movies is they like have like 100 different like people do small cameos. So
Okay.
I didn't meet any of those names, but I mean I worked with like Tara Reid and Deborah Wilson and Marina Sirtis and
How long were you in this castle?
it was like 2 days.
Okay.
We shot it in 2 days.
So,
That's
any
a
more acting coming up? Sharknado 7.
I was in Ask Controller 9, which is a porno.
Mhm.
Were you really?
I played a newscaster. I did not do sex acts, but I was there to move the plot along.
It's very important.
Were you in the scene? Were you in the sex scenes?
No, I was like, I don't need to be around that,
Mhm.
guys. Like I love what porn actors do, and I respect them, and I admire them. But I was like, no, it's too messy, like too many
Mhm.
oils.
Yeah. Yeah. Scent.
But
So
I recently acted in a movie, and it's called God Save the Queens, and I
Oh.
star in it alongside Laganja Estranja, and
Mhm.
we got to play people who do drag.
tell me about this. I'm adding this to my Netflix queue now. When is this film coming out? Do you know?
I have no idea when it comes out. We just like finished filming on it, and it was really, really cool. And I loved it because so often we get sent auditions for, the drag queen who's hosting bingo, and it's the same 3 lines. If you're a drag queen, this is what you do. But this was like, these are characters that were in and out of drag. Like, these are characters with depth and like things that they want, and heartaches. And so like I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Wow, that's exciting. And you
So,
just wrapped. So a couple
Yeah.
years. We got a couple years before we
I
can see
mean,
it.
maybe.
Yeah.
well, in the meantime, we got your extra special comedy special, which is on Out TV, and I'm hoping there'll be some new music coming soon, either with or without Jeremy. I'm excited for that. But before we let you go, the reason we need to let you go is you have this event coming up at 6 that I think, especially for people here who enjoy nightlife in Los Angeles, is for it's for an important cause, but it's near and dear to my heart. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what's happening in about 20 minutes?
We're doing a live stream. So it's basically like a game show where we get our drag queen friends together, and we're going to be playing a trivia game. And all the money is going to save Precinct, which is our queer ass rock and roll bar in downtown LA.
Mm.
And so tonight it starts at 6, right after this, 6 o'clock on the Pacific. And it's me and Willem and Meatball and Mayhem and Katya and Bob the drag queen. And we're gonna be, I don't know, answering trivia questions. I have no fucking idea what the questions are.
Who's the host? Who's the Alex Trebek?
Well, I mean, kind of me.
Oh,
Kind of me and
okay.
Willem.
So you
Kat-
kind of know what's going on.
What about for people who are listening who don't know what Precinct is? Explain, because I think it's very important to the culture here, and it is like so many indie venues, rock venues, bars all over the country. It is in danger due to the pandemic and closures. Did you get your start there? Like, were you performing there in your early days when you were in LA?
No, I mean, Precinct wasn't around when I first started drag.
Mm.
But it has become like such a home for like our whole community. And just I've gotten to do some really fun weird shit there, and they're just, Brian, who runs it, is just like so down and so supportive and incredible. And there's a fucking long list of queer spaces that are in danger of closing. The list is too long. So we're like, you know what? For this event, we're gonna focus it on Precinct, because I want to see them meet their goal, and I want them to fucking survive and thrive.
And how do we watch this benefit that you're about to go to?
You can go to racechasertickets.com, and it's like I don't know, it streams on YouTube or something, and they send you a link.
Speaking of Race Chaser, since I said you and Willem have been covering every season, have you been, I assume you've been watching this current season of Drag Race. The finale is this Friday. Got Mick, who you mentioned, who's the first trans male contestant, is in the top 4. And we got Simone and Candy Muse and Rose, who is also a singing drag queen. She has a group with Jan that was on America's Got Talent once. Do you have any predictions for this finale, or is there someone you're rooting for?
I don't know. It's so hard to choose. So at this point, I'm Team Candy. I mean, she won one challenge, but who cares? We did a song together.
You did?
Yeah.
What song was this?
We did a song called Sitting Alone in the VIP. It's on my YouTube. It's really good.
Yes, I remember this. It was sort of about like it was about the pandemic, right? It was about being in a club that's closed, sort of.
Well, we wrote it before the pandemic, but it predicted the future.
Apparently. Well, before I let you go, you also mentioned that Katya is part of this. So I mentioned it earlier. I would love to talk about one of the most rock and roll moments ever on RuPaul's Drag Race. This is when you and Katya in All Stars 2 lip synced to the Joan Jett recording of Cherry Bomb, which is pretty awesome. Was that like one of your favorite lip syncs to do?
It's so weird that that would be one of the songs that I ended up lip syncing to, because I love the Runaways, and like that was the version of the song that I was really into. And I mean, it was, I don't know, it was a cool moment. I don't like that I licked Katya's face. That was gross and weird, and I wouldn't do that again.
Especially now in the
Not COVID safe.
it's not COVID.
It's just not.
Well, I'm going to let you go so you can do at racechasertickets.com. You can do this live stream for a very worthy cause. Thank you, Alaska. Everybody, if you need a good laugh, go check out her extra special comedy special on Out TV, and definitely keep us posted on all the music, Sharknado 7, everything, anything else you're doing as it comes up. Thanks so much.
You. It was great talking to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alaska.
Thanks, Alaska. We'll be right back with Volume West.